Hello YouTube! Today on the Naughty Librarian we are doing a new episode of Drunk Classics, and today we are reading Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I am really trying with this French. I feel like the more I drink, the worse it will get. So right now, I think I actually pronounced that pretty okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna get into this and see what happens, because I don't know much about it. I know that there was this woman named Rebecca, and then she died, and then there's this new wife, and then she's like, oh, Rebecca, and she's like, I don't know, obsessed with Rebecca, or everyone else is, and then she feels bad. I don't really know what's happening here, but I'm gonna read this and figure it out. And I don't know, I've decided I'm gonna try to read this over 3 days, so I'm gonna read about a third of this book today. So I figure when I am done reading this first third of the book, about like 130 or so pages, I think I'll just check in then and like give you a full wrap up of the first third of this book. So I did it. I read the first third of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. A lot of things have happened, but at the same time, like, nothing has changed. What I mean by that is, like, a lot of, like, events have happened in the characters or in different places, but, like, the conflicts they're having is really, really repetitive. I'm kind of getting beat over the head with, like, the themes of this book. It's like a gothic, you know, romance, and there's like this whole theme of like the past, for good or for ill, is gone. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna live in the present, or are you gonna live in the make-believe future? It's kind of like expectation versus reality, and how the past is constantly haunting these people. Like, I get it, like, I get the themes, I get it, and it's just constant the harping on these themes. It's like, maybe throw a little something else in there. I don't know, but it's only the first third, so maybe this is like, it hasn't really, you know, come to a boil yet. So here you go. Here's the deal. So there is a protagonist, is this woman. The character is never named in the book. If this character is named, I have completely missed it, but now, like, I've read like 135 pages of this book, and I do not know this person's name. And so I don't think it's just me being super forgetful. I think this character does not have a name. I don't know what the literary choice behind that was, but the character does not have a name. She's just her, like, the narrator, her, I don't know. But anyway, so this girl, right, she is like, she's like the personal assistant for this, like, older woman, Mrs. Van Hooper, or Hopper? Van Hooper, Van Hopper, one of the two. She's like this older lady, whatever. She's kind of gauche and like obnoxious, but like whatever, she pays well. So she and this lady are in Monte Carlo. I'm like, there's worse jobs to have. You gotta go on vacation to Monte Carlo. I'm like, okay. So she's there, and then Maxim de Winter shows up, and he's kind of like a, you know, generic rich guy. I don't really think he's like famous or anything, but he's like a rich guy. And then Mrs. Van Hopper, she's like, hey, I want to talk to this guy. And she like makes a fool of herself or whatever. But anyway, it allows our girl and Maxim to meet. And then from there, they like spend a bunch of time together, because like Van Hooper gets sick. So she's just on her own. Our girl is on her own throughout the day, needing to spend time doing something. And then Maxim's like, hey, let's go on drives, let's go around town, it's gonna be cool. So they start spending a lot of time together, but they're also being so dramatic. It's like, oh yes, let us look at each other with the ghosts of our pasts and sigh dramatically. It's very, very over the top melodrama, but whatever. Like, he kind of just likes her because she's like young and effervescent, even though she's kind of really shy and reserved, but she's just like young and fresh, so he's like excited to be around her because she's like different. And even though like he does admit at one point that like she is young enough to be his daughter, they do say their ages eventually, and I believe he's like 42 and she is 21. He's literally twice her age. I don't know, the whole thing just feels like a midlife crisis, frankly, but whatever, they're hanging out a lot. So like a few days go by, right? And Mrs. Van Hopper, she's like, hey, I'm done. I'm over Monaco. I'm gonna go back home to New York to be with my daughter. Pack our shit up, girl. So and then she has this panic attack. The girl has a panic attack. She's like, oh no, I'm never gonna see Maxim again. I like Maxim a lot. And so eventually she finally just goes to his room like, bah, 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 I'm leaving. I am sad. Like a full thing. And he's like, oh, well, do you want to get married instead? Like, that's the whole proposal. It's very not romantic. He's literally eating a tangerine. He's having breakfast. He's having a tangerine. Not even a particularly good tangerine. It's like a sour one. And he's like, oh, well, why don't we just get married then? Problem solved. And he's, and she's like, okay. And then they get married. And they say romance is dead. And so after they get married, he takes her back home to Manderley, his estate. It is like on the west coast of England. Fancy old manor house, Manderley. And she gets there. She's 21. She's a little baby, and she did not grow up with like money. She's working as a personal assistant. She didn't grow up with money. Like, let's be real. And now she has to like show up at this house and be expected to like manage it. And she's like, I don't know nothing. Like, she's like out of her depth and like really kind of drowning about things. And she's not getting a lot of help from people. Like there's Mrs. Danvers, and she's like the main housekeeper, and like she's so obviously painted as a villain in this book that it's like cartoony, where she has like a skeletal face and dark orbs for eyes and her like passive aggressive like disdain, and it's like she's so like villainly painted. It's just like, why doesn't she just curl her mustache a time? Maxim has shit to do. He can't like just spend all day hanging out with this girl, so like she's just on her own, lost in a manor house. She doesn't even know where things are. Like, no one's given her a tour of this place. She's just hoping for the best and just like really feeling inadequate because like everybody kind of talks about Rebecca, his ex-wife. Well, not ex-wife, he's a widower, so like his dead wife. And everyone's like kind of casually mentions Rebecca, like, oh, she was so pretty and so like poised and she threw the best parties and like blah blah blah. Rebecca, everyone has a huge boner for Rebecca, okay? And so she just feels like super inferior and like has imposter syndrome, and she spends a lot of time moping about that and lamenting the fact that like, oh, I'm not Rebecca and everyone can see it. Like she walks around having like panic attacks and moping all the time about this bitch Rebecca, and she doesn't even know her. She's never met this lady, and she's literally dead, and she's so jealous of her. I'm like, she is dead. She's a dead person. Dead. Like, she did end up making a couple friends. Like, there's Crawley, who is like, I don't really remember what he is. He's like some guy. I think he works with the Manderley estate. Like, he's like a business guy, I think. And he kind of like lives in the property, but like he's really nice to her and stuff, and like so she can talk to him, and finally she just has a breakdown. She's like, everybody fucking loves Rebecca and I'm not Rebecca and I don't know what to fucking do. She finally just like loses it, and he's like, whoa. And you know, he kind of feels bad for it. He reassures her, is like, listen, like, it's a good thing you're not Rebecca. Like, don't worry about it, don't ask more questions, but like, it's a good thing. So like, ooh, foreshadowing, I don't know, but like he kind of just reassures her a bit. And he also finally tells her what happened to Rebecca, because she married this guy, she moved into his house, she's running the estate. She doesn't even know what happened to Rebecca. She just knows she's dead, and like no one's told this girl. So he's just like, yeah, so like she went out on a boat by herself and the boat sank and she drowned. And that makes sense because there's so much talk and aversion to like the sea and the beach and the ocean and sailing, and anything involving the sea is like very much persona non grata here. And in Maxim, he always has like, he gets really grumpy when he talks about the sea, and there's like places on the estate he doesn't want to go, and there's certain like coves he doesn't want to look at. So, you know, and everyone thinks he's real like distraught over, you know, his dead wife, which he has a right to be, and he might not want to go like hang out with all of his dead wife's stuff because it reminds him of sad things. So don't really blame him here, but like maybe someone should have told her what the fuck happened to this lady before like this far into the marriage. And then the girl just like spends her time walking on eggshells around Maxim because she doesn't want to mention the sea or the ocean and have him get upset. So she's just so insecure about the fragility of their relationship. Mind you, they knew each other for like 4 days and got married. And he's twice her age. Like, the relationship doesn't have a very firm foundation, so I get feeling insecure with this, but like, I don't know what to do. She's just becoming a ghost of herself to match Rebecca's ghost. Everybody's a ghost in this gothic romance. Woo! Okay, on that note, that kind of sums up the first third. It's a lot of moping and feeling sorry for yourself and a whirlwind romance, so to speak. And then like some lady died in a boat accident. And then that's kind of where we're at. I think it's like a lot of preamble. There's not like a lot going on yet. It's just a lot of repetitive moping. But anyway, tomorrow I'm gonna read the next third of this book, so I'll be 2/3 in, and we'll see if something cool happens. Right now we're just kind of getting like the framework. Hello. It is day 2. I realize I did not film before I started reading and drinking, so it's just, hey guys, I read the next third of the book. So I read 2/3 of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I am better at French when I'm drinking. Not a lot more stuff happened. It's like stuff happened, but like it was a lot of like it's this girl spiraling, having panic attacks and just not being happy, and then like some shit goes down. But anyway, let's dissect this for a second. So like I said, this girl, she's just going around spiraling, having panic attacks. Like, I feel like people pleasing is her full-time job at this point. Like, that's all she does. And then like has panic attacks about it. And then one day, this guy comes over to the house, Mr. Favell, and he's meeting with Miss Danvers. And they're like just hanging out, doing whatever. It's nothing like weird. It's just a guy there. And like the girl meets him and she's like, I don't like this guy. Like immediately she's like, I can smell whiskey on him. He is up to no good. I want nothing to do with this guy. We find out later though that Favell is Rebecca's cousin. So, and then he was meeting with Danvers because you know Danvers is like the president of the Rebecca fan club basically. Like Danvers, like before she was just like generally kind of shitty to be around, but I'm like, okay, like that's not like a thing, you know? It's like, okay, you just don't hang out with her, that's fine. But now like she is like starting to like show her crazy bones, like they are coming out. Basically the whole west wing of the house was where like Maxim and Rebecca like lived. That was her suites. And Maxim doesn't want to stay in him anymore. He wants to stay in the east wing, and that's where he is with the girl. And then Danvers, she like sets up the whole west wing as if Rebecca was still there. And it's all like just like so much so that it looks like Rebecca is there, just how things are set up, and she's full on going like crazy about it. I was like, oh my gosh, stalker alert, everybody. She's like, look at the room, would you like to see her under things? Look at the drawers, oh, it doesn't look perfect, Rebecca was just here. Like she just like Looney Tunes and like grabbing the girl's arm. She's like, haven't you seen Rebecca's things? Like just like bonkers. And she's like, oh my god. So yeah, Danvers is kind of throwing the crazy switch here. And most of the time spent in the second third was about like this costume ball. So there's this big Manderley costume ball. It was like a tradition when Rebecca was around. The neighbors and stuff are all asking like, hey, are you gonna have the costume ball? Are you gonna do it? And Maxim's kind of indifferent to it. He's like, I guess, I don't care really. And then like the girl, she's like, yeah, let's do it. And she's just doing that to try to please people again. She doesn't really want to do it, but she's like, oh, but I want Maxim to like me and not think I'm shy, so like I'll have the party, you know, that whole thing. She's just, oh gosh, she's like, girl, like I get she's 21, she's like a kid and like has been thrust into this whole situation very quickly, so like I have sympathy for her, but at a certain point it's like, oh my gosh, everybody needs therapy. So anyway, they're gonna have the ball, right? And then of course, because it's her, this girl, she can't decide what she wants to dress up as, and again, spiraling. She just spends all of her time spiraling into panic attacks about things. That's like what she does professionally at this point. So she's like, what am I gonna dress as? And she's having a full panic attack about it. And then Danvers shows up, and Danvers is being like strangely nice and is like, hey, why don't you dress up as that portrait? You know, that portrait on the wall of the white dress? Isn't it cool? Like, that's Caroline de Winter. You should totally dress up as her. Like, there you go. Problem solved, right? You want me to call London for you? So she's being, like, oddly nice, and she's like, oh, okay. And then eventually she does that, and she gets the big white dress with the wig, and she's gonna be, like, this portrait from the portrait gallery in their house. And she gets the dress, and she's, like, so excited about it. And it's the day of the ball, and the dress shows up, and she and her maid, Clarice, who is actually really kind of cool. I like them as friends. And then, like, she gets dressed in the whole outfit, and she's like, this is the best. Like, I haven't told anybody what I'm gonna be wearing. It's gonna be such a surprise. She walks down the stairs and has, like, even, like, the band introduce her. Like, the band guy introduced her to be, like, Miss Caroline de Winter. And she's like, oh! And she shows up, and everybody just, like, goes silent. Their jaws drop. Everyone's like, what the fuck, lady? So, and she doesn't know what she's done wrong. She's like, oh my god, spiral alert. And then Maxim goes white, and he's just like, go upstairs and change your fucking outfit. I don't care what you put on your body, it just can't be this. Go. And like, so she goes upstairs and again spirals for so long, like going like just imagining what everyone's talking and saying. She imagined the whole event going on without her there because she doesn't want to come down anymore because Maxim's all upset and she doesn't have a dress to wear, and she's like, I don't know what I did wrong and all this stuff. And so eventually, like, Beatrice comes upstairs. Beatrice is Maxim's sister. I think I talked about her earlier, but like Beatrice comes up and she's actually kind of nice. She's like, listen, there's no way you could have known. There's zero way you could have known what you were wearing and the reaction would have had. Obviously, it's a big mistake. It's okay. Trying to calm her down. She's like, what the fuck happened? And apparently, the very last, like, costume ball at Manderley, Rebecca wore exactly that costume. So fucking Danvers set her up. She was like, oh, wear this costume. You know? So Danvers is just being a little bitch and setting her up to like have this big like meltdown. And so she doesn't want to go down the party, but eventually she does because it'll be worse if she doesn't show up to her own fucking party. So she goes and then just spends the whole party just completely disassociated, just going like seeing things and people talking to her and responding but not knowing what's going on. She's just completely dissociated. Everybody needs therapy. And after the debacle of the party, and like Max isn't talking to her, he didn't come to bed that night and stuff, so she's like, I've had it. And she goes like, hey Danvers, what the fuck is your problem, bitch? Like, she finally has it out with Danvers, and Danvers is like, oh, you wanna know what my problem is? My problem is you, bitch! And she goes off on a tirade. You could never be Rebecca. Have you met Rebecca? You haven't met her, but she was the best, and no one could ever be Rebecca, and you're not Rebecca, and I hate fucking seeing you here. Just like full on letting the rage out. And then like she keeps spiraling into like all this Rebecca stuff. And I'm like, is she admitting stuff she should not be admitting? Because all of a sudden she's like, yeah, and Rebecca was so gorgeous. Like, everybody was in love with her. She'd have all these guys over and just bang them over in, like, the boathouse all the time because she could. And I'm like, I went back and I reread the paragraph to make sure that is exactly what Danvers said. And Danvers is like, yeah, she boned a bunch of other dudes while she was married to fucking Maxim. And who cares? She was allowed. She was Rebecca. Have you met her? The sun shines out of her asshole. And it was like, what? Who is Rebecca? She sounds like awful now. She been banging all these dudes at the house she lives in with her husband. It would explain why Maxim doesn't want to go to the boathouse, because that was like her fuck pad she had with all these random dudes. But anyway, so we're gonna like put the icing on this rage cake here. And Danvers, she's like, hey girl, hey girl, hey girl. See that open window? Why don't you just jump out the window? Why don't you do it? What do you gotta live for? Maxim doesn't love you. He loves Rebecca, obviously, because Rebecca's like the best, and you are not Rebecca. So, you know, you should probably just kill yourself. Like, she's basically just like trying to talk this girl into killing herself and jumping out the window. She's like, hey, it won't even hurt that bad. Like, you'll probably break your neck right away. It'll be fine. Like, she's really trying to talk this girl into killing herself. And I was like, what? Oh my goodness. And that is where like the chapter ends. Actually, no, it's not. There's like this big like rocket they hear, like a flare, I guess. And they do that in the harbor when like a boat runs ashore. So that's where the chapter ends. So she's like trying to convince the girl to kill herself, and then a boat runs ashore. And then I stopped reading for today because that was the end of 2/3 of the book. Here are my hot takes for 2/3 of the way through Rebecca. 1. Everybody needs therapy. Everybody needs therapy. Number 2, I don't understand their relationship because like Maxim married this literal girl. She is half his age. He's 42 and she's 21. She is like old enough to be his daughter and she's his wife. And like he never spends any time with her. He's like a shitty husband. He doesn't hang out with her. He gives her no affection or anything. Like the most companionship like this woman gets with anybody is the ghost of fucking Rebecca haunting her at every fucking way she looks. So I understand why she's going a little bit crazy. But like, oh my gosh. Like, I want to feel worse for this girl because, like, everyone is always comparing her to Rebecca. And here's the thing, though. We're reading from her point of view where she's fucking spiraling into anxiety attacks all the time. Probably 0% of people are actively comparing her to Rebecca at any minute. She's, like, fully has this in her brain and has been, like, spiraling with anxiety in it. So, like, I don't know, like I feel like I should be like weary of all these other people on her behalf, but like realistically, probably no one is judging her like this harshly as she's judging herself and like putting it on all these other people because she needs therapy. So yeah, on that note, I finished my wine. I had another 3 glasses today, so I feel like that's a good amount. And I got, you know, however much more of this book to read, like 1/3 of it. I'll finish it probably tomorrow, but like really the whole book is just this girl having panic attacks and like spiraling in anxiety. So I feel like if you suffer from anxiety, you probably shouldn't read this book because I feel like it's going to set off other people's anxiety just reading about her having this much anxiety all the time. Anyway, there you go. That's the 2/3 of Rebecca. I'm through it. There you go. That's what's been happening. Not a lot. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here I am, just hanging out in bed, doing my reading for the day, and here's my plan. I was going to drink some wine, and then just, you know, film after I had finished the book, film a whole wrap-up after a few glasses. That was my plan, right? The thing is, started my first glass, having a nice time, reading the first chapter for today, and you know what? I had to pause because, oh my goodness. Like I hate not filming with my tripod because it's so shaky, but I'm going to try my best not to be shaky. And also there's shitty lighting, but whatever. We got to talk because some shit just happened in this book that I was not expecting to happen. Yesterday, where I ended, like a ship ran aground in the harbor, right? So everyone's going out to the harbor and they're trying to investigate what happened, and Maxim goes out too, blah, 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 blah. And eventually they send a diver down, right? And the diver, he's just like looking around, and he finds the boat that Rebecca had her accident on, right? He finds the boat sunk at the bottom of the ocean or sea or whatever. So he goes in and he kind of investigates it a bit, and he finds a body on the boat. Dun, dun, dun. So first things first, the girl, she hears about it first. She goes, oh my gosh, Rebecca wasn't alone on the boat. There was someone else there. Like, we're gonna have to figure out who was on the boat with Rebecca. And then Maxim was just like, so like, hear me out. He's like, by the way, Nope, that's Rebecca's body. I know it's Rebecca's body because I shot and killed her, and then I put her body on the boat, and then I sunk the boat. So, like, Rebecca never had an accident. Maxim killed her. This is now a murder. And I was like, what? Murder? Murder? Rebecca was murdered. What? Murder. There's murder now. And you know what? As I was reading, because I got this at a used bookstore, and someone had had it before me, and like they had wrote, what? So they were also equally as like shocked by it. But yeah, chapter 19. Maxim is a murderer. Dun dun dun. Is he gonna murder this girl too? I don't know. I don't think this ends with murder though. Because the first chapter of the book, the girl is alive. Well, obviously the first chapter of the book, but the first chapter of the book is in the future, and she's thinking about her time at Manderley. So she's obviously still alive. So, sorry, spoiler averted. Like, she's obviously not get killed by Maxim, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen because Maxim killed her. Killed Rebecca. I'm assuming he found out about all the affairs she was having in the boathouse and then killed her. Oh my gosh, okay. I'm gonna come back later, but we had to pause and talk about the bombshell for just a hot second. Alright, I finished it. I finished Rebecca. It's all done. I read the whole thing, all of it. It's a lot. So, basically, the first 2/3 of this book, nothing was happening besides this girl having spiraling panic attacks. And then the last third of the book, straight up soap opera telenovela with like illicit affairs and secret babies and murder and betrayals. It was just like so much. Like they saved up all the juicy bits for like the last part of the book. So where we last left off, Maxim killed Rebecca. We find that out because Rebecca, she was just a stone cold bitch and she was awful and terrible all the time, and she had a bunch of affairs because she had a boathouse fuck band she just boned everybody at. She was not a good person, and he killed her, and they go into like this whole like explanation about what happened. She was trying to bang everybody. She was trying to bang Frank, who is like Maxim's like business guy. It's actually the only person who's kind of nice to the girl, Frank Crowley. She tried to bang him and he was really uncomfortable with it. And then like they insinuate that she banged Beatrice's husband Giles, like Maxim's sister's husband. And you know, Favell, the cousin, she was banging him too. She was literally banging her cousin. Like, this girl has this an insatiable vagina. She banging everybody. So Maxim, he's like, I've had it. You can't keep begging everybody. I want a divorce. I don't want to do this anymore. And then, like, she just, like, goes off on a tirade. And she's like, hey, guess what? There's nothing you're gonna do. I'll get everybody in town to say you're crazy. She just gaslighting him, basically. She's like, oh, like, everyone likes me a lot. I'll get everyone to testify against you. You'll never win. And, like, I could even get pregnant with someone else's baby, and I'll make you raise it as your own, because you're not going to tell someone it's not your baby, and then they'll get Manderley when you die. Like, she's just, like, villain tirade, and he's like, nope, and he kills her. And she, like, and she dies. And then he puts the boat out into the harbor, and he, like, makes a hole in it so it sinks, and then, you know, he thinks it's been done with. So he's telling the girl this, the whole sordid detail. And here's the thing with this girl, who obviously needs therapy so much. It's just that what she takes from this whole confession is that she's super happy because it means that Maxim doesn't love Rebecca. He only loves her. He doesn't love Rebecca. Rebecca can't hurt her anymore because she was evil, and like Maxim doesn't like her. He only likes me. Like, she is just, that's what she takes out of it. And I was like, oh my god. Anyway, so they have to do like the full inquest because, you know, they found a body. So they immediately identify it as Rebecca because it's wearing, it has identifiable things. And they're at court and they're having the full inquest and thing, and they bring in like the boat builder guy, right? The boat builder guy, and he's like, I built a badass boat, homie. Like, there's no way it sank. I looked at where you found the boat. There's no rocks around it. There's nothing. There was all this like stuff happening in the boat, like the pipes were on, and then like the hole, someone obviously like had made it from the inside of the boat. Someone sunk this boat. So basically he's off running his fucking mouth, telling everybody what a great boat he made and how someone obviously sank it on purpose. So they have to like look into more things with this inquest. However, the court literally has no evidence of any foul play at all, besides this guy who made the boat saying that someone obviously sunk it. So they end up ruling it a suicide. So like things are coming up Maxim. Like he's okay here. Except Fable. Like he shows up and he's just like, listen up, fuckwit. Rebecca sent me a letter the day that she died and she wanted me to come down and bang her and she wanted to tell me some stuff. So like I have a note. I'm gonna go to the cops unless you give me a bunch of money, because I don't really care that you killed her, but like I want to get money. Like Fable's just a piece of shit, okay? And Maxim's like, no. Well, let's call the magistrate. We'll call him right now. We'll have the police come over. You can tell him your whole fucking little story. Go ahead. So Maxim calls his bluff. He's kind of getting badass now. He was so like mild and like moody for the whole book, and now he's just like, go ahead, tell the police. Go ahead. I got nothing to hide. Fuck you. So they call the magistrate guy over. And so he comes over and Fable's obviously drunk because he's a drunk. And he's like going, he killed Rebecca. And I have this note and it proves it. And like the magistrate is just like, you have a piece of paper that doesn't prove that Maxim killed anybody. Like, what are you doing? And he tries really hard to get someone to like roll on Maxim, but he doesn't really have any evidence of this. He's like, Danvers, we'll get Danvers down here, Miss Danvers. So Danvers comes down and she's like, there's no way Rebecca did it because she told me everything, because Rebecca was amazing. She was so badass and she banged everybody because she was that cool. And fuck you, Fable. She didn't really like you either. She banged everybody and then she came back to me and we laughed about it. She's just basically has a huge boner for Rebecca, and it's like weird. Danvers, she pulls out Rebecca's diary and it's like her appointment book. And the day she died, she was in London, right? And she went and got her hair done, she went and got lunch, and then she went to go see someone named Baker, right? And then they figure out the phone number for Baker and they call, and it's a doctor. And they're like, oh, what's this? Like, and Danvers is like, I have no idea. She tells me everything. I don't know why she would have seen a doctor. It's obviously a mistake, but it can't be a mistake. And then she's just like quiet and doesn't know what to do. So anyways, it's like nighttime, is really late at night. And then the magistrate's like, okay. We'll all go see the doctor guy tomorrow because there's like nothing we can do tonight. Danvers lock Maxim and the girl in their bedroom so they can't like escape in the night. And then I'll come pick him up in the morning. We'll all go see this Baker guy. Like, we're gonna go see it. Obviously, Maxim and the girl are a little nervous because Rebecca did say, like, oh, I'm gonna be pregnant with someone else's baby, and they'll get to Manderley. And I feel like Fable is, like, a little bit, like, I'll bet I'm a baby daddy. Like, there's this whole thing, like, was Rebecca pregnant? Who's the father? Like, they all have, like, this dread, okay? So, like, it's the next morning, right? They go to town and they meet with Baker, the doctor, and they're like, hey, remember this lady who came to see you a year ago? He's like, no. And eventually he finds like the appointment book and he's like, oh, I never saw Mrs. De Winter, but I did see someone named Mrs. Danvers. So obviously she used a fake name and it was Miss Danvers, like it's Rebecca. And she's like, oh yeah, she had like crazy terminal cancer. Like she was gonna die in a few months and it would be really painful and terrible. I told her this. She was super cancer ridden. Like it was bad. Also, like with the x-rays I took to find all her cancer, her uterus was all wonky and she couldn't have babies. And he just throws that in there for no reason. No one asked about her uterus. He just throws that in. So she obviously was 100% not pregnant. And also full of cancer. So she, you know, it just kind of like fills in that gap of why this person committed suicide. So now they have more of a motive for suicide than they do for murder now. And Maxim's like, good talking to you, Doc. And Fable's obviously upset with this, but like not so much because he doesn't really care that Rebecca's dead. He's just like, ah, well, I guess I'm not getting my $1,000 from Maxim. And the magistrate's like, hey, sorry to bother you with the buddy, but like, hey, if anyone gives you trouble, come get me and I'll take care of it. So like the magistrate's on Maxim's side. Every piece of evidence points to Rebecca committing suicide, and she was lousy anyway. And like, he's just gonna get away with murder. And like, I'm excited for this character to get away with murder. And I'm like, this is a murder person. I shouldn't be excited for them murdering people, but I'm like, fuck Rebecca, right? She just, fuck it. Maxim can get away with murder, okay? And so, you know, they're like, all right, let's go back to Manderley. Maxim and the girl, they're gonna go back to Manderley. They're gonna start over. They're gonna be happy together because, you know, they love each other for reasons. And they're on the way, and Maxim's like, there's something rotten in the state of Denmark here. Like, I don't think things are above board still. Like, I'm cool. Like, obviously, I'm getting away with the murder. Like, that part's sick. Like, I like that a lot. But, like, I feel like Rebecca still is gonna get revenge somehow. Like, she was real crafty. She was a crafty little bitch. They call the house, and they're like, hey, what's up? And they're like, hey, yeah, Danvers left. Like, no one can find Danvers, right? Miss Danvers, she left. And everyone's like, oh, shit. Like, why would she leave? Like, something's going on here. So they're like, we're not gonna stay it in. We gotta bust our ass and get back to Manderley tonight. So they're like driving all the way to Manderley that night. And they get there, it's like after 2 a.m, and the girl's like, wow, you say it's at 2 a.m? It looks like the sun's rising. And he's like, that's the west. The sun doesn't rise in the west. She's like, well, it looks like the sun's rising. And then he's like, no shit, that's Manderley. So they get back, and Manderley is just fucking in flames. And the book ends. Like that, literally, that's the end of the book. They drive up to Manderley, and Ash comes at their car, and that's the end of the book. That's the last line of the book. The Manderley's just on fire. Like, la la la. I guess Rebecca got her revenge somehow. She just burnt down the house, but like, fuck it, he's super rich. He'll just build a new house. So basically, here you go. First 2/3 of the book is just a long panic attack for like 200 and something pages. This is a panic attack. And then you have the last third of the book where it's straight up soap opera with like so much drama. Like they saved it all up and put it in such a short amount of time that it was so concentrated that I was just like gasping at things. And like, I want to gasp at stuff, you know what I mean? So I don't really know how to rate it because like the first 2/3 of this book were bad. They were boring. And just a girl having spiraling panic attacks. They were boring as shit. But the last third was just like, oh my gosh. So like, I feel like conflicted how to rate it. Like part of me wants to say like 2.5 stars. Maybe round it up to 3. But I'm like, do I want to put it as 3? I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out as we go. And it'll be done later. That was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and it is a book of craziness for the last 130 pages, and the rest of it is just a panic attack of this girl. And it's fine. Everybody needs therapy. That's my big takeaway. Everybody needs therapy, and fuck Rebecca. There you go. That's the takeaway of it. However, like the main character girl, who never has a name, I don't know why she doesn't have a name. It feels like, why won't she have a name? Like, I know she has one because she mentions people calling her by name, but she doesn't say what her name is. It's like, why is she so like impersonal? It probably has something to do with her fucking mental state, but like, I don't care enough to like think about it that hard. Rebecca sucks. She gets killed, they get away with it, and then Manderley burns down. There you go, guys. Simplified into 4 beats of, like, summary. On that note, I'm gonna finish my wine. I'm gonna go relax, have a night to myself. Let me know in the comments down below, what are things in books that, like, you love? Like, what juicy fucking details are you like way into? Like if you're reading a book you're just like, oh my gosh, and you get so excited for, like, this one has a lot. There's betrayals and secret babies allegedly, and murder and all kinds of stuff, secrets and lies and murder and babies. Like all kinds of shit. What kind of like soap opera shit is your jam? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!